Once upon a time, there was a town nestled between rolling hills and whispering trees. It was a quaint place you'd probably pass by without a second glance, just another picture-perfect town in the countryside. But there was one day every year that turned this peaceful town upside down. It was a day for celebration, a day they called Holly Bash. It all started when the first leaves of autumn began to turn, painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. That's when the excitement in the town would begin to build. Soon, the whole town would come alive with music, laughter, and dancing. For one night, the boundaries between the living and the dead would blur and the veil between reality and fantasy would thin. And then dawn would break, the revelers would go home, and life, in the seemingly sleepy town, would return to normal. At least it seemed normal. For some, the Holly Bash held deep significance, a connection to their past and a promise to their future. For others, it was a night of mischief and merriment, a chance to break free from the everyday. And for a few unlucky souls, it was the beginning of their nightmares. The old brick buildings of Ashton University loomed against the twilight sky like silent sentinels guarding secrets best left undisturbed. It was here amidst these ancient walls that a chilling mystery began to unfold, a mystery that would test the limits of human understanding and leave its victims questioning the very nature of reality. Our story revolves around Elias, a young man with a thirst for knowledge and a hunger for a fresh start. He'd heard tales of Ashton University, not just its hallowed halls and esteemed faculty, but also the whispers of something more, something sinister lurking beneath the surface. Despite the warnings, Elias had decided to enroll, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth. As he stepped onto the campus, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched, that unseen eyes were following his every move. It was as if the very walls of the university had a memory that refused to stay buried. Days turned into weeks, and Elias found himself drawn into the enigma of Ashton University. The more he explored, the more he realized that this place was far from ordinary. The students seemed oddly distant, their eyes filled with a haunting emptiness. The staff, too, was strangely evasive, their smiles tight and their gazes fleeting. It was as if they were all hiding something, sharing a secret that they desperately wanted to keep from him. One evening, as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the campus, Elias decided to venture into the forbidden zone, the abandoned dormitories. These were the places where the veil between the real and the unreal seemed thinnest, where the whispers of the past were loud. He found the old dormitory key in the lost and found office. It was a heavy, cold piece of metal that seemed to weigh down Elias's hand as he turned it over. The keyhole of the main door yawned before him like the entrance to a tomb. With a deep breath, he inserted the key and pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Cobwebs hung from the corners like macabre decorations, and peeling wallpaper cast eerie patterns on the floor. Each creaking step echoed in the cavernous space, amplifying the sense of desolation. As Elias moved deeper into the dormitory, he began to see things. At first, they were just fleeting glimpses out of the corner of his eye, dark figures lurking in the shadows, their faces obscured by what looked like grotesque masks. But then they started appearing everywhere. They seemed to be watching him, their eyes boring into his back, their presence a suffocating weight on his chest. He wasn't sure how long he'd been wandering through those desolate halls. But eventually he came across a locked room at the end of a dimly lit corridor. The door was old and scarred, and Elias felt an inexplicable compulsion to open it. The doorknob was icy cold beneath his touch. As he pushed the door open, he found himself in a small, dark room. There was a single window high up on the wall, and a shaft of moonlight illuminated a wooden box in the center of the room. Elias approached the box, his heart pounding in his chest. It was made of a dark, aged wood, and intricate carvings adorned its surface, each curve and line seeming to writhe and twist like tormented souls. As he reached out to open it, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut, plunging him into darkness. Panic surged through him. He stumbled back, his fingers scrabbling for the door handle, but in his haste, he missed the box. It fell, crashing to the floor, releasing a swarm of black feathers that billowed into the air. A low growl reverberated through the room, sending shivers down Elias's spine. The growl grew louder, taking on a menacing tone that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. And then a voice, raspy and ancient, echoed through the room. "Who dares disturb the slumber of the ancients?" Before Elias could respond, the room plunged into darkness. He screamed, his voice echoing through the empty halls as he fled, the sound of the growl growing louder, more menacing with every step. Back in the present, Elias found himself drenched in sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs. The dream, or perhaps it had been more than a dream, had left him shaken to his core. What was this place he'd stumbled into? Who were these masked figures? And why did they seem so intent on keeping him away? Determined to find answers, Elias delved deeper into the university's history, poring over old yearbooks and campus maps. He discovered that the abandoned dormitories were a part of the university's forgotten past, a time when the school had a much darker purpose. He learned of a secret society that had thrived within the university walls, a society that worshipped an entity known only as the Devourer. The members of the society, driven by a lust for power and immortality, had performed unspeakable rituals in the very dormitories that Elias had explored. The Devourer, it was said, demanded a terrible price for its favor, and many had disappeared after making pacts with it. As Elias pieced together the fragments of the past, he realized that he was not merely a student at Ashin University. He was a part of something much bigger, something that had been set in motion centuries ago. He was a pawn in a game where the pieces were souls and the board was reality itself. But Elias was not alone in his quest for knowledge. He formed an unlikely alliance with a fellow student named Luna. Together, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the university, seeking clues and trying to stay one step ahead of the unseen forces that seemed determined to keep them in the dark. One day, while exploring the university library, which seemed to hold more secrets than its aged walls could contain, they discovered a hidden passage. It was concealed behind a bookshelf, and when they stepped through, they found themselves in a subterranean chamber. In the center of the chamber was an altar, and on the altar was a book bound in human skin. As Elias reached for the book, a voice boomed through the chamber. So the circle widens, and the hunt begins. Two souls entangled in the weaver's scheme. One seeks the light, the other craves the night. Can reason prevail, or will darkness ignite? Startled, Elias and Luna turned to flee, but the passage behind them had vanished. They were trapped. The voice continued, its tone mocking, lost and alone in the depths below. The Devourer calls. Its hunger does grow. One soul to consume, one to possess. Who will it choose? The game is afoot. The stakes are high. In this eternal night, beneath the hollow sky, just when it seemed all hope was lost, a hidden door in the chamber revealed itself, offering them a potential escape. However, beyond the door, instead of the familiar surroundings of the library, they found themselves in a dark and foreboding forest. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around them, forming a canopy that blocked out the sunlight. The air grew heavy, making it hard to breathe, and the silence was broken only by the sound of their own footsteps. Then they saw it, a clearing bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. In the center of the clearing stood a large, gnarled tree, and beneath it was a group of people gathered in a circle. They were chanting in a language that sounded ancient and sinister. As Elias and Luna watched in horror, the chanting reached a crescendo, and the figure at the center of the circle raised its arms. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and from the center of the clearing, a swirling vortex of darkness emerged. The figure stepped into the vortex, disappearing from sight. And then the most horrifying thing happened. One by one, the other figures stepped into the vortex and vanished as well. Elias and Luna watched in disbelief as the clearing became empty, the vortex slowly fading away. They had stumbled upon a terrifying truth. Ashton University was not just a place of learning. It was a nexus of dark forces, a gateway to a realm where the rules of reality were bent. And the figures they had seen were not merely students or faculty. They were initiates of a sinister cult, worshippers of a being whose hunger knew no bounds. With the cult's ritual fresh in their minds, Elias and Luna knew they had to act fast. If they couldn't stop the cult, then who knows what horrors might be unleashed upon the world. Their journey to uncover the truth had just begun, leading them deeper into a nightmare from which they might never awaken. The night of Harlabash descended upon Ashton University like a shroud, draping the campus in an eerie glow. Elias and Luna, armed with newfound knowledge and determination, prepared to face the darkness that awaited them. As the clock tower chimed midnight, they slipped into the abandoned dormitories, the place where the veil between worlds was thinnest. There, in the heart of the old dormitory, they confronted the masked figures, the Devourer's disciples. A battle of wills ensued, a desperate struggle to preserve reality in the face of unimaginable terror. The climax was inevitable, a confrontation with the devourer itself. But the cost of victory was high, and as the dawn broke, casting its pale light on the blood-soaked halls of Ashton University, the true horror of the night was revealed.